Chapter 4. The Method of Movement. Our bodies are a wondrous creation of ergonomic function and anatomic possibility. They define the form of our existence in this world and the method of our interaction with it. We master the general use of our extremities by the time we reach adulthood, but elaboration on basic function is something we develop over a much broader span of time. With this, we must understand that all creations are designed with a characteristic nature, defining the boundaries by which they are meant to operate. Our bodies are among these, which we interact with under certain design parameters, defining principles of movement that are grasped by conscious articulation and clarified by stresses on the body in the form of pain. Bringing out the potential of our bodies is a lifelong pursuit that is only possible with persistent development and everyday training. Dancers who have developed a passion for their art do not often have trouble in this regard, but a dancer may find that devotion to the art of dancing is understandably a much richer experience when one discovers the connection of the art form to the self, which goes beyond any individual step or pattern. Like the difference between being certified and qualified, one may be capable, even proficient in performing a task, or may possess certification for a position. Yet a person certified may be dull and unseasoned. Qualified individuals, on the other hand, as the word denotes, possess a certain quality of character derived from consistency in passionate interests related to their qualifiable work. Such individuals have stepped outside the boundaries of certificate practice and have discovered a wealth of interest, driving the spark in their character and the connection to their work. Dancers whose work is to dance and to perform naturally seek this sort of connection to themselves. In the process, they discover the relationship of the conscious with the physical to be as satisfying an experience as seeing a naturally occurring wonder for the first time. Knowing ourselves has just as much to do with our physical properties as it does to understanding our individual inner person. A large portion of understanding the inner self comes from understanding the outer self and its interaction with the physical world. Understanding our outer self through dancing can help individuals in a number of physical areas. It lessens the effects of physical aging and the restrictions of physicality, allowing for more freedom to move and express. A studio owner and national competitor out of South Carolina, Karen Hermanson, once shared a story with me about a woman who wasn't sure she could dance. She said, "Recently a lady came in and said, 'I think I might be too old to learn this.' And I pointed out my 97-year-old gentleman student who's been dancing with me for 20 years. He started when he was 74, which is older than she is now." End quote. With our form, we have the ability to do many incredible things and keep doing them for a good long time so long as proper care is taken. Each individual has uniqueness built in, differences which allow for a great variety of talents to be shared. As such, each person with their own talents is a wonder and a blessing to each of us. If we then spend our time cultivating our abilities and not abuse what we have, in other words, our body, we become something able to inspire others. The body itself is already very inspiring just by what it can achieve with the assistance of a dedicated mind. Martha Graham, choreographer and one of the foremost pioneers of modern dance, once stated, "In a dancer, there is a reverence for such forgotten things as the miracle of the small beautiful bones and their delicate strength." This might suggest to us how full of potential our bodies already are. All we need to do is tap into our natural abilities and explore them. A valuable skill to have as a dancer is a good understanding of the body and how it functions. Yet the concept has been absent in the dance community for too many years and still hasn't been fully integrated into general instruction in all places. Free expression of movement has always been the primary goal for most of the popular dance forms, and dancers, spurred on by traditional practices and devotion to particular aesthetics within a style, tend to go out of their way in finding how to get around individual restrictions of the body leading to injuries. In the past, it has been a common belief that if one dancer can perform a movement, then all dancers with training should be able to perform the same. This sort of thinking has led too many dancers, both young and experienced, into trouble with a number of chronic injuries, which shorten their careers and leave them at a disadvantage in mobility later in life. It is often an overlooked yet simple fact that bodies are shaped differently, which leads to these kinds of injury-causing practices and traditions about how to dance, or what it means to dance. Just because someone else may be able to perform a certain routine does not mean that everyone will be able to do it the same way, or should. Some people, depending on their body's restraints, simply will not be able to hold a 180-degree turnout for their ballet class without injury. Others, however, will have an easy time with this and wonder why others are so incapable. Those having difficulty may try and force their way into this position, damaging ligaments, tendons, cartilage, or the membrane surrounding the joints, also setting themselves up for other injuries from poor stability and incorrect posture. A number of problems that come about from forcing turnout in first position are not immediately apparent and may only manifest themselves later in life. Forcing the body to move outside its restrictions is asking for trouble, even if it is not painful right away. Dancers need to learn to be kind to themselves and use their art's medium, the body, with respect and reverence. It is easy to get overly enthusiastic about dance, especially on teams where much is demanded. Dancers tend to neglect themselves in such a setting due to the pressures to perform and the long hours of rehearsal. But a painter would not treat his brushes haphazardly, neglecting to clean and dry them so the bristles won't fray. Nor would a violinist allow his instrument to be exposed to elements of heat or cold, which will cause it to fall greatly out of tune and potentially damage the wood. Similarly, dancers who are too punishing to their bodies leave themselves susceptible to a variety of injuries, usually from overuse. Long hours of rehearsal and strenuous activity lead dancers to fatigue, combined with poor diet, faulty traditions of turnout, misalignments, and other factors. A dancer's body will break down and no longer be effective in dancing or much else. It wouldn't make much sense to expect only dancers to protect themselves and take care of their bodies. We should all look after what we've been given. Quote, "We should all love our bodies," an instructor of mine often told her class. If we take care of ourselves, the benefits are obvious. We will have a more enjoyable life, and we may keep dancing, among other things. In dancing, 3 types of joint restrictions determine the range of motion a given individual has: bone, muscle, and ligaments. These are the 3 main tissues that bind us together and are essential for anyone to move. Without them, dance would be something very different than what we currently understand it to be. Bones provide the structure and support. Muscles provide the stability and motion. Ligaments indicate the safest and most efficient direction for joints to move, acting as the tape that holds us together. These cause restrictions on range of motion, and the free movement we are looking for as dancers is never free outside these restrictions. It follows with such thinking that there are certain actions which should never be done. Bone restrictions are given. On the other hand, muscle is quite malleable, as it has a great deal of elasticity and is the primary area to work on when developing greater range of motion with specific safe stretching techniques. Lastly, the ligaments hold very little if any elasticity and are not meant to be stretched. However, sometimes, due to misalignments and sudden impacts such as a fall, stresses are put on ligaments, causing them to stretch and tear, resulting in sprains, strains, and swollen ankles, the most common joint for dancers to injure. Once a ligament has been stretched or injured in this way, it deforms, making it longer than it was. This is a behavioral description of the term plasticity. When something has plasticity, it is able to deform, stretch, or pull, but then will not return to its original shape. Like Play-Doh or gum, for example, which have great plasticity. When ligaments deform, they don't ever go back to their original shape. This results in some extra range of motion at the joint the ligament holds together, but makes the joint less stable. Thus, a dancer with stretched ligaments has a greater tendency towards more serious and lasting injuries, or chronic injuries, such as osteoarthritis, later in life. For these reasons, ligaments should never be stretched. But while plasticity is something to be aware of in our training as dancers, it also has a practical application to us in connection to our growth and development as individuals. That is to say, while some things shouldn't be stretched, other things must for growth to occur. I am reminded of an instance when a studio owner was having a conversation with one of his managers. The manager had been advocating the use of a structural syllabus for each of the classes and to advertise the syllabus to new students before they began classes. This way the students would have an idea of what they were getting into and what they would get out of their lessons. In essence, they would see an end goal and be able to judge their progression in reference to it. This was not a bad idea. In fact, most studios use a syllabus in this manner for that very reason. However, it was not that this owner did not use a syllabus in his teaching, only that he preferred a more open structure to his classes. than what was being proposed would allow, and this is where they disagreed. I casually listened in as their discussion continued, interested in who would gain the upper hand in the debate. In my own evaluation of the argument, I decided that the owner was right, being that while syllabus steps must be taught, each class shouldn't be limited to a prescribed set of steps based on a level or number of lessons. When asked my opinion, I replied with a question in return. Quote, "It depends. What are we teaching, classes or students?" End quote. I asked this because some class situations are more appropriate to teach generically, especially if they are one-time instructions. But a good teacher will always tailor lessons, if he can, to the specific needs of his students. New students particularly have a hard time picking up new steps and may require time and reinforcement of general movement concepts before understanding and growth occur. In this way, newer students can be seen as being elastic in their abilities. You can stretch them and push them, but tomorrow they will have forgotten what was taught, and it will have to be relearned the following week. On the other hand, more advanced students have a better grasp on general movement concepts and know enough patterns to learn new steps relatively quickly. They possess plasticity in learning, in that they can stretch beyond their current limitations and retain much of their growth. But this is only achieved after the student has undergone a process of stretching themselves, mentally and physically, to the point where learning and growth becomes easier. When we engage our minds, we grow and expand our understanding, gaining greater and greater plasticity of the mind. Learning and retaining then becomes easier and faster. With consistent stretching of the mind's abilities, it could be argued that growth can be gained exponentially and is limitless. Even though we may have limitless potential, we still all have to start somewhere. Progress usually starts off slow and depends upon the amount of time and dedication we put into our work. Miss Hermanson also commented on the teaching of dance and how a person may develop with the right training and dedication. She says, "When you're talking about dancing in general, the thing that I've said for a long time is there's no mystique to it. Anybody can learn to dance. I think a lot of teachers, especially some of the professionals, try and make a mystique about it. The one thing that bothers me about the TV shows in dance is that they all talk about how hard it is. Learning to dance is not hard, and if a teacher tells you it is, I don't think they're a very good teacher. There are difficult concepts, but if you were to go to a gym and work with a personal trainer, you would expect them to tell you things to do so you could accomplish your goals. I've had people who didn't believe they could learn, and so they quit before they get it. But I have never had a person who could not learn to dance, and I've been doing this for 30 years." End quote. The most basic element to progression in any form is the kind of practice we perform for the progression we want. And any practice will employ some sort of technique. Technique is vital to keep dancers dancing, and the discipline gained is invaluable. Not just to our progression as dancers, but to our progression as people. A few dancers once offered this insight to me about dance and life that I think draws on a very good point to consider. Quote, "One of the greatest parallels that I believe one can make between dance and life would be control and self-discipline. For me, as a dancer, I love the feeling of having full control over where my body is going and what it is doing. It takes a lot of work to be able to have that type of control, but when you have it, it is amazing how much you can do with your body. Your potential is limitless. When we compare this with life, we can see that in life, when we have self-discipline and control over our actions and who we are able to make our lives what we wish for them to be. Our life doesn't have to be swayed by the world or others' opinions. This is one of the greatest lessons that I have learned from dance, for it has helped me realize that who I am is more important than who people think I should be." End quote. Daniel Carter, Spanish Fork, Utah, student of modern and ballroom dance. People are more free when they are able to move freely. In this, I mean that a person secures the freedom to act and do as they like once they have limited physical limitations, which never completely go away, but can be lessened to a point where much can be achieved. Along with this, confidence grows as a person begins to discover what they are capable of doing. Moreover, a person who has gained confidence in this manner may have greater ambition to discover new talents. In this way, dance can have an even greater effect on a person's mind than on the body. This is true also, in part, because dance has a way of lifting our perception of reality from a mundane cycle of routine complacency to a more creative enthusiastic, and interactive state. In interviewing dancers with various backgrounds for this project, I began to notice a curious consistency in the way many began to answer my questions about their dance histories. Many always began with the same sure statements. "Dance is my life," or "Dance means so much to me." And other statements were very similar, so much so that I began to wonder what I was going to do with a collection of identical statements. These are a few. Quote, "Dance is my life. I don't know any other way to say it. It is sincerely my deepest passion. I am 20 years old, and since I've been dancing my whole life, my body feels like it could be 40. Dancers are the only ones who understand what I mean by that. The other day I was talking to my dad, was explaining to him my injuries and the aches and pains that I'm going through. He told me if I was going to complain, I should just stop dancing. Whenever those words enter my mind, I melt down into tears. I can't imagine doing anything else but dance. And hearing that from my dad traumatized me. Dance is such a big part of me. It has shaped me into the human being I am today." Kelsey Black, Georgia, student of jazz. Quote, "I love dance. It is a way of expression, a way for health, and an aesthetically pleasing technique that is beneficial for everyone to master. I do not have much experience with dance, at least not as much as I would like to have. I did a lot of dancing as a little girl, which was a good foundation, but then there were years of passive dancing, observing mostly, and participating from time to time, all the way before college in the United States. However, I am determined to be a dancer, for my soul and health for as long as I live." Katerina Melnichenko, Russia, student of modern, ballet, and ballroom dance. Quote, "Dance is a way of life for me. I grew up in a large family that encouraged and supported my dance aspirations. I've danced ever since I was a toddler. I've been blessed to dance many genres of dance, including ballet, lyrical, hip-hop, Irish, jazz, modern, and even ballroom. I'm so grateful to have at least a little experience in many forms of dance. One of the most important roles that dance has played in my life has been that of teamwork and friendship. Dance has given me a way to improve myself and serve others through performances and building unity on teams and dance companies. Most importantly, I feel that dance is a way to express my love for God and all He has blessed me with." End quote. Celeste Oymet, Highland, Utah, student of ballroom and modern dance. It seems that dance has a deep connection to individual lives. It becomes such a part of who a person is that it cannot be separated from their identity. Passionate dancers may find it easy to attach dance to their personal identity. They do so with statements such as, "Dance is my life," or "Dance is who I am." These are appendage statements summarizing the larger picture of who they are. Of course, dance isn't everything that a person is or has become, but because dance has such an elaborate impact into so many facets of individual lives, it is easier to say that dance is, in fact, our life, rather than to try and explain all the many elements of who we are in a drawn-out way. It has changed us, shaped us, enabled us, freed our bodies and our minds, as well as strengthened us to perform many feats, and provided us with greater clarity of strength and greater power over our weaknesses. The art of dance uses the whole body as its medium, and projects the image of the body the same way a painting projects an image from a canvas, but in 3 dimensions and with character narration in real time. Dance is a creation process. This is opposed to a creative process only. Creativity represents an exploration of possibilities to be created, while creation represents the action after possibilities are defined. One precedes the other, and so it is that dancers, in the process of creativity, are by such practice shaping themselves in many other areas outside their dance. And thus dance is a creation process and not a creative process only. To create something takes effort, patience, faith, talent, and understanding of the elements being worked with. Creation in any sphere is a benefit, whether the creation is recognized or not. Through the process of creating, we grasp at our own intelligence. By its action we act in like manner upon ourselves, building and shaping who we are. By contrast, it doesn't require any talent or understanding to destroy. Hand a young child almost any object, and it is understood not to last long. But creating affects the body by suiting its properties to the work it has been engaged with, and the mind by building its character, its knowledge, and its precepts. Quote, We must recognize that excellence and quality are a reflection of how we feel about ourselves and about life and about God. If we don't care much about these basic things, then such not caring carries over into the work we do, and our work becomes shabby and shoddy. Real craftsmanship, regardless of the skill involved, reflects real caring, and real caring reflects our attitude about ourselves, about our fellow men, and about life." Unquote. Spencer W. Kimball, former president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Creation, facilitated by quality, becomes a work of excellence. This is the method of movement. As movement suggests a sense of progression forward or backward, it is understood that to possess forward movement is to act in a quality manner towards a creation of excellence, whereas backward movement is lacking in the same, being without caring. This is why we must each have something to care about and be engaged in. Without caring, we lose our sense of being and become a redundancy of fabled identities, lost in complacency, neither progressing nor contributing to the world in which we each must live. This is a kind of disservice to ourselves, as persons cannot develop themselves without putting their whole being into their performances. Performances which suggests all activities we find ourselves engaged in, not just our dancing. This will always require caring. But just as valid is the connection this concept holds to movement on the basis of physical objectivity. The codified behavior of movements from the various dance styles reflects a determinate skill set for the basis of excellence. Each style possesses its own skill set and in some cases its own variations. For example, Martha Graham introduced the concept of contraction and release. Eric Hawkins stressed ease and free flow of movement. Charles Weidman emphasized fall and recovery. Methods in modern dance formed by these pioneers are examples of this skill-based development, as are technique classes in ballet, ballroom, jazz, etc. All dancers perform within a three-part balance of time, space, and energy. As a dancer moves, he or she is bound by space. With each form he or she assumes, they reflect the energy of a character for a dance. With these in place, the dance performed becomes a companion with time, and balancing the abilities to perform in each of these areas is the individual techniques that each dancer has mastered. Levels of technique are apparent in dance, since dancers are always at varying levels of ability and accomplishment. Technique is necessary at any level of dance, because it is the technique each dancer has attained that reflects each dancer's quality. This is not to say that technique constitutes a dance, but rather technique holds the dancer together through patterns of a dance. One student suggested this about technique. Quote, "One thing for dancers to know is that you should dance for yourself. Technique only matters to keep your body safe. It doesn't make you a dancer. What makes you a dancer is your ability to put your whole self into your movement and say something with it." End quote. Brooke Odell, South Jordan, Utah, student of modern and ballroom dance. The famous Russian prima ballerina Maya Plasticity took this a bit further. In an interview for a British documentary in 1986, she said, quote, "We don't have words. Besides the face we have the gesture, the body, and the music. None of them need translating. It's common to everyone, and so you can't go in for mere technical tricks. For example, a pirouette that means nothing. If there are only technical ballets, this impoverishes the very word ballet, because ballet is the art of plasticity, of fluent expression, which affects everything, and technique all on its own doesn't affect anything." End quote. Dancers sometimes confuse the idea that technique is the only premise from which dancing is derived, thinking that technique exudes dance. This is often the case for students who have teachers that spend all of each class developing strict technique, not allowing for creativity of movement. It is such training that may have inspired Isadora Duncan, regarded as the mother of modern dance, to rebel against her formal ballet training to form a unique style to her time period. She emphasized skipping and hopping in free-form patterns inspired by nature. This became the foundation for all modern dance. My first instructor, while teaching Latin dance styling, would often introduce several variations to a step, incorporating hand gestures to create a new quality in the character. Then he would suddenly tell us, "I'll put the music on. Go ahead, play with it," suggesting that we take what he had shown and freestyle with the movement. This was not an easy thing to do. Ballroom instruction does not often deviate from prescribed syllabus steps learned in classes. So unless you're out looking to practice variations to patterns on your own, there won't be many opportunities to get it. This, I think, is a failing of some dance instructors, not of dance styles themselves. One reason ballroom has such a high appeal is the opportunity it provides a person to express movement with a partner. However, expression in ballroom dance is less developed at beginning and sometimes intermediate levels because of heavy emphasis on prescribed patterns. Technique, patterns, steps, syllabi, counts, and rhythm are tools we use to illustrate ourselves in new ways. They require a strong use of the mind and muscles of the body. This can be difficult and require training and effort. Still, mere training or effort aren't enough to develop the tools into a dance. Quote, "It takes an athlete to dance, but an artist to be a dancer," said Chanelafleur. It is important that we have both of these, artistry to express, and technique as athleticism, which provides the aesthetic and the discipline to avoid injury. My first dance instructor had many quality insights about dance. One of my favorites was how he would tell us that, quote, "The number one most important part of dancing is rhythm, but the number one rule of dancing is to have fun." It is thoughts like this that allow for the freedom of movement dancers are looking to develop in training. Restrictions on the body are meant to enforce the structure of our form, and do not have to be a restriction on the quality of movement we develop. Striving for quality in dance, as well as in life, requires effort. This requires caring about the work we do. If we do not care enough about our work to achieve quality, we are cheating ourselves and others. This is because it isn't the things we do care about that cause us to grow and achieve and inspire others most. The movement in dance expresses oneself with quality of movement and character, formed by the foundations of technique and artistry. Movement through life is much the same. It is about having quality of character and performing with excellence. When the two combine, we truly evoke a lifestyle of happiness, health, and wealth, as it adds richness to our spirits. Dance experience becomes life experience for many, and the example of dedicated dancers and performers show us that dance, as well as life, can be a rich experience, full of hopeful ventures and exciting possibilities, if we make it so by our efforts to achieve in excellence in what we do.